Okay, so my name is Fatima Zara Ahmed, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have three beautiful children, and those three, I have two who I take care of who have special needs, and they're different special needs disabilities. I run a foundation, an NGO, where I help parents who have special needs children, because, caring for these children comes with a lot of mental health issues and challenges. So it's not an easy journey. So yeah, basically that's it. I'm just an entrepreneur, stay-at-home mom, and I run a foundation. So that's it in a nutshell.
I love the modesty. I'm just a stay-at-home entrepreneur. I run a most people one or maximum two of those things. Right?
Yeah, so that's it. That's it. Basically, that's it.
Where do you live? You live in Nigeria.
Yes, I live in Nigeria, in the northern part of Nigeria. That's Abuja. That's the Federal Capital Territory. Yeah.
Okay. Now we talk about the mental health impact on kids of special educational needs. Can you explain a bit about that?
Well, when you have a child that has any kind of special needs, it takes a toll on them mentally, psychologically, emotionally, because you see them a lot of times. We're always in the hospital with these children. They're always in and out of the hospital. Today they're doing fine, tomorrow they're not doing fine. You're in the hospital, they miss out on school a lot. And it really takes a toll on them. And then sometimes even the medications they take actually are prone to giving them some kind of mental health challenges, especially depression or anxiety. So these are the issues that most of these children face. And it's really not an easy thing, but then you have to learn to live with it. So that's it.
You say these children end up in hospital. That shocks me. Could you explain about that?
Well, when you have a child that, for me, personally, I have a son who has cerebral palsy, and which is, he has the severe kind of cerebral palsy. He has this severe brain damage, and with the brain damage comes a lot of other complications. We have issues with constipation. Sometimes constipation takes us to the ER, and then you have issues with aspiration, because when you have a child that doesn't have any neck control, he has issues swallowing, and definitely sometimes he chokes on the food you feed him. And then after choking, you have to deal with issues of aspiration, where aspiration is simply something that goes into the lungs, and your child finds it difficult breathing, and then you have to end up in the hospital. And also with cerebral palsy, you have issues with epilepsy. It always comes hand in hand with epilepsy. So when you have a child that is having a seizure, definitely you have to be in the hospital for that. So most of the times we always end up in the hospital, and it's really not a funny experience, but that's how it comes. Yeah.
And what sort of provision is there in Nigeria for these kind of children? Is Nigeria really well set up to care for them, or does it depend on the part of Nigeria you live in, or how does it work?
Well, actually, we have very good doctors here, but the issue is we have limited resources when it comes to the technology part of having, sophisticated gadgets to take care of these children. Most of the times we have to travel abroad to get the best medical intervention for these children, because we have limited resources down here. So we have to go elsewhere seeking for these medical interventions. So it's quite challenging. It's quite challenging.
And if you say you have to travel abroad, can I assume that means that only the middle class people can do that? Or what happens if you don't have the money?
Well, if you don't have the money, you have to make do with what you have down here in Nigeria. That's the sad reality of living here in a third world country. So, yeah.
Yeah. And these special needs, they encompass what you would call the broad range of special needs, from dyslexia on the one hand through maybe autism into cerebral palsy. So can you say what kinds of differences there are in how these different special needs are looked upon or accommodated for?
Well, first things first, we have a lot of challenges. Why? Because there's not much awareness. You come across a person and he asks, "Oh, what's wrong with your child?" And I'm like, "Okay, he has cerebral palsy." oh, what's cerebral palsy? So you deal with a lot of people that don't even know most of these conditions. So you have to keep talking about it. You have to keep telling people but the good thing is now, not really a good thing, really, but because we have a lot of cases of autism, people are more in tune with autism now in Nigeria than any other disability that we have, because people just don't know. And it's like down here, a lot of people don't really care. Like, I don't have an issue with my child, so I don't really bother myself to know about all these disabilities when we're talking about conditions, syndromes, disabilities, or learning disabilities. A lot of people just don't care because it's not in them. It doesn't affect them in any way. So they don't really care to find out.
Yeah. And so autism, there's a lot of knowledge about autism because there's a lot of autistic people.
Oh, we have a lot of
cases. There's a lot of
autistic
people because there's a lot of knowledge about autism. How does that sort of circle work? So obviously, a lot of the time we wouldn't know if there were autistic people if we didn't know what autism was. So where did the knowledge begin? How did that first come into the culture?
Well, I think because now we have a lot of organizations that actually take up the mantle to spread the awareness about autism, because I think now in Nigeria, there's hardly a house you will meet without having a child that is autistic in one way. It could be the mild spectrum, it could be the more severe spectrum, but most of the times we always have, like in 5 homes, I can safely say in 5 homes, you can find 2 to 3 homes that have children who have autism. So we have a lot of people now advocating, speaking a lot about autism, spreading the awareness. So a lot of people now are getting to be in tune with the reality of what autism is. And because we have a lot of cases of autism down here. So
And so what sort of provision is there for autism in Nigeria?
Oh, well, we have a lot of specialists. We have behavioral therapists here who work with these children. We have speech therapists here who work with the children to help them with the speech, with the behavior. But even if we do have, a lot of people don't have access. Why? Because it's quite expensive. It's quite expensive. So a lot of people do not really have the access to get these therapies for the children. And then sometimes you hear complaints from the parents that even if they have the money for the therapy, they still don't get satisfied with the result they're getting. So they have to resort to going abroad for these specialties. Yeah, because I have a mother that I know that always often travels to South Africa for behavioral therapy and speech therapy for her 2 children who have autism. So
So autism, I mean, nobody has the specific precise figures, but we think that autism impacts on or affects maybe 1% of the population, more or less 1%. We'd say dyslexia may impact upon, well, I've read figures in Nigeria between 20% and up to 30%.
Yeah, in Nigeria, we have over 20% of people affected with dyslexia. Yeah, around 36 million people in Nigeria. We are a 200 million population, and we have 36 million people who are affected with dyslexia in Nigeria.
And so I'm guessing that because there's so many people affected by dyslexia, or so many people who are dyslexic, that means that there is good provision for dyslexia in Nigeria.
Unfortunately, not really. And we have a lot of foundations working on it right now. And, it's so sad to think that even our policy makers don't really make it a priority. A lot of people are unaware about dyslexia. Sadly enough, 90% of our teachers in Nigeria don't have any idea what dyslexia is. And so you get teachers in school labeling a child as dullard because they don't really understand the needs of the child. And so he's being termed as a dullard because the teacher is not qualified to be able to identify the signs and symptoms of dyslexia in a child. So there's a big gap.
And this gap might contribute to something we talked about slightly earlier, which is the mental health issues of special needs kids. Could you talk about that a little bit? I mean, perhaps with dyslexia in mind, but also generally.
Yeah, so basically with dyslexia, there was a research that was done by one of the newspapers here in Nigeria, The Guardian, and what they were saying was when they went to a prison, they had a prison visit here in Nigeria, and there were a lot of people in the prison, and these prisoners most of them happened to be dyslexic. Most of them are school dropouts. They had to leave school because they were not able to fit, because that's the word to use. They didn't fit in the society, they didn't fit in the educational system. Because of this gap in the educational system, the teachers were not able to pick out the signs that these people or this class of children have an issue called dyslexia, that probably with assessment and intervention they could have done better. Because like we all know, dyslexia does not affect the intelligence of a human being. It's only a language issue. It's a reading problem. But because we do not have people that are skilled enough to understand and help these children, you find a lot of children that are dropouts, a lot of children that go into drugs, and drugs comes with mental health challenges. You have a lot of children that actually become thugs. They maim people on the street, and then they end up in the prison. And then when you go to the prison, the prisons don't look good. Definitely, they go through a lot of mental health issues. Some of them commit suicide because there's no acceptance in the society. So it's really a huge problem here. It's a huge problem.
And one of the issues I think that people probably forget with mental health problems is if somebody has suicidal ideation or if they go into drugs, that doesn't only affect that person, that affects the people around them. It affects the family, it affects the loved ones, it affects the friends. If they have any form of jobs, which they might not have, it would affect the people they work with. So is there any focus on the wider issues of mental health problems?
Well, right now, I know there are a lot of foundations. There's a foundation, I know, Sunshine, and they're doing a lot of great work advocating and spreading awareness about mental health issues. And I know, for one, I also blog about mental health issues a lot. We talk about it. Like for me, I live in Abuja, but I'm from Kano State, is another northern part of the country, where mental health issues are not really discussed. They look at mental health issues as a taboo, and you're not supposed to talk about it. So you find someone that has all the signs of depression, but because people do, because of the fear of the stigma and the stereotype and the bias, a lot of people prefer to keep to themselves, even when they know they have these issues. And at the end of the day, they end up committing suicide. They end up, it's either they commit suicide or they harm someone close to them. And so we're trying so much, we talk about it a lot. And I'm so happy that a lot of people now, especially in the North, are coming out and they're speaking a lot about mental health challenges and what it can do to you if left untreated. Yeah.
And you say that you don't come from Abuja, you come from somewhere else. So does this mean that in different parts of Nigeria, there are different attitudes to special educational needs and mental health problems? And that if you have, for instance, autism or dyslexia or some other need, and you have accompanying mental health problems, you're more likely to get help in some parts of Nigeria because you're more likely to talk about it?
I think it has to do with enlightenment. You know, where I come from, like I keep saying, the northern part of Nigeria, we have a lot of work to do because there's lack of awareness, there's no enlightenment, and the level of literacy is very low, especially in Kano. We have a lot of people that are not really educated. And so when you're not educated, you don't even know anything about mental health challenge. So it's something that needs to go through the grassroots. And then we have culture. And when you're talking about culture, culture plays a vital role in our lives. And so culturally, you're not supposed to talk about, because even if you're talking about mental health issues, we have, like for me, I go through a lot of challenges because I have special needs children. And where I come from, these children are termed as evil or being possessed by some kind of spirit. So they don't really have the knowledge about this thing could be medical, and then with medical help, your child could get better. And so in a lot of villages, you find these children being killed because someone somewhere told the parents that, no, this child is evil. You have to get rid of the child because this child will actually make you lose everything in your life. So there's a big gap when it comes to the educated and the uneducated. There's a huge gap. But we're trying to fill that gap up. We're trying to spread the enlightenment, the awareness, so people will get to know what these things are. Yeah.
And these children, you say, they might get killed.
Yeah, a lot of them have been killed. A lot of them have been killed. Yeah. Because there's no awareness. The parents don't know better, and there's nobody to tell them that these things are related to a medical condition, that with medical help, it could get better. But because they don't have the education, they don't have the knowledge, they resort to the easier way for them. The easiest way is to kill the children so they can have a fulfilled life. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
That's shocking and heartbreaking. I suppose
It is.
So the question becomes, are these areas where the stigma is greatest, are these areas likely to be villages rather than cities, or is it more complex than that?
It's more complex because you have people in the village and you have people in the city who think alike. Is the thinking, is the mindset, is a fixed, they have this kind of fixed mindset. A lot of people are not open to knowing new things, are not open to embracing new things. There's a change that has come, but people don't want to accept the change because they have their cultural beliefs, sometimes religious beliefs, and so they don't want to go outside what they know. They prefer to stick to what they know and stay where they are. So yeah, that's a huge problem.
There's a big connection then between, for instance, religious belief and the attitude towards special educational needs.
Well, mostly not religious beliefs, but it has to do with the culture. It's cultural. It's a cultural issue. Yeah, it's a cultural issue.
And you tend to get, certain types of religious belief growing in these cultural areas rather than...
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly, yeah.